This is the Our York Media Podcast, an audio and video production that features the good news makers of York County, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Rebecca Hanlon. Chris Markey, president of To the T Outfitters, has been in business for 13 years, and a business that started in his basement has grown to become a way for him to give back to his community. Chris, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, you're York County born and bred.
Born and bred.
Give us a little bit of your background in York. Where did you grow up in particular?
Well, I was born in York, but pretty much raised in Redline.
Okay.
Graduated from Redline in 1986. Went off to school at Temple University. Well, I went to Shippensburg for a year. Through transgressions and everything, ended up at Temple University and never ever finished, but had that entrepreneur, which was entrepreneurship kind of in the family. My mom was an entrepreneur. My dad was a engineer for 30 years with ITT over in Lancaster, but always had worked in Philly and DC, and then moved home because it's home, it's York, and so I had some entrepreneurship background and decided that as this process moved on and life moved on, that I'd get into business.
So you didn't finish school?
Never finished school. I'm 42 credits short.
Was there something that held you from that?
Money.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, in today's world, it's even worse with money, or kids get strapped down. But for me, it was money, but I think it was a good guidance, like, hey, you ran out of money, now what are you going to do? And so you make it work. So
what was that for you? What was the next thing after that, when that wasn't going to be the completion?
Well, I got into sales with Cellular One Corporate down in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, and handled businesses and worked with businesses, and that was before you had AT&T and all of that. So I got into selling cell phones and everything, and did very well. Then my aunt, who had worked at the newspaper for years under Bob Orstaglio and Fred Offerman and all them, said there was a position open at the York Newspaper Company, so I applied for it, interviewed, got the job. And then right after that, they hired a gentleman named Martin Till, who to this day is probably my biggest inspiration. Just in life in general, how to handle business, how to be professional. And I got into marketing, got into the York community even further through the business of the newspaper, going to events and everything that was going on, and got to know a lot of people. And then decided to be a entrepreneur, and left there and went into a business partnership with some doctors, and owned a beer distributorship and some pizza shops and some laundromats and some rental properties, and that kind of right. And that kind of led me to, this is something I want to do.
What was appealing to you about that?
Freedom, being able to use your own mind, being able to kind of have to think on your feet. I've always been a think on your feet kind of guy. So the big challenges in your life are making a decision and then floating with it, moving with it. So that was the thing that intrigued me the most. Like, I'm going to make a decision. Okay, how do we get out of here if it's wrong?
Okay. And
the easiest path, and not the hardest path.
Okay. So those types of businesses range quite a bit. What was the thing that drew you to those types of businesses?
I don't know if it was drew me. I had worked at a pizza shop when I was in school in Philly, and I had so when I was at the newspaper, my ex-wife and I bought a property down in Stoverstown and with some cousins, and we sold that property, and then we bought some rental properties in at the college, and I was like, man, there's opportunity to make some money here and be closer to the community. So we bought some rental properties, and when we did that, I was playing racquetball one day while I was still working at the newspaper at that time, and got approached by an accountant who said, "Hey, I have some guys that heard that you own some rental properties. They're interested in getting in." So I got into the rental property business, and while we're standing there looking at these rental properties, there was a place called Tucker's Deli on Jackson Street, and it was up for grabs. And I said, we ought to make this a pizza joint, because I used to work at a pizza joint and really enjoyed it. And then while we were standing there, we were trying to think, what's the name? And I said, what about Munchies? And it's a college joint.
Yeah.
And so that turned very successful, and we had 30 rental properties and the beer distributor down at Cape Horn Beverage down in Redline, and we did a lot of stuff. And then life got in the way. I wasn't around my family a lot, and just had newborn babies, and the ex-wife wasn't happy, and so then I got out of that and went into mortgages, and I still had the burning sensation to run my own businesses. So a friend of mine a couple years later approached me and said, look, I'm working for this company and they're bouncing my checks. What do you think we do this? I said, well, look, I can buy a laptop, and that kind of led to where we are now, through a long progression, but through where we are now.
Yeah. So when you were working selling mortgages, what was life kind of like for you then, that you kind of felt that itch to get back to it?
Well, it was great. I mean, it was great at that point because mortgages were going crazy. Now, I only sold A paper and dealt with a lot of the best realtors in town, the Jeff Cleavers of the world, and Adam Flinchballs, and I wasn't into the bad paper stuff that really got us in trouble down the road. But hey, you help a person out, they get in a home, they get in a mortgage, they do all this stuff. I wanted something that I built, that was mine, or that was ours, or that I could, bring people into the business and we could grow it together. So I still had that draw, and then when Casey Campbell brought this up to me, I was like, man, here's an opportunity. I think we could do it. So 6 months of research, and what are the other people in the community doing wrong, and why is it wrong, and doing all that, which I had never done research in my life. I'm always a jump in and then we'll figure it out later kind of guy. But we started this, and it started coming, and then people started coming, and then you had to find people to print your stuff and do your stuff, and that was a challenge then too. So I like challenges. I like, as I always tell my wife, I said, a lot, and no offense, but a lot of women sometimes, and even men, think that there's a problem. Oh my God, there's a problem. It's right here in front, right here in front. And I always have been the person to be like, well, how do I get over there? Like, okay, there's a problem. All right, let's address the problem. But how do I get over there? And that's been one of the advantages or one of the things that I do well that helps us get to that point. I'm a fix a problem kind of guy, and then let's not do it again.
When you were first looking at this was the t-shirt business you were getting into, what was that conversation like early on to say, let's look at maybe doing this?
Well, Casey had a lot of customers already, and I just felt that this world was expanding. Kids were getting more into travel ball, and there was a lot more rec programs, and and you go out and your kids playing these programs, and you look at the stuff and you go, oh, wow, like really, like somebody actually put some thought to that. Like, so, at that point and the main thing is I'm a service guy. So if you call me, I'm going to answer my phone. If you email me, I'm going to text you back. Whether I say I'm going to have the answer now or I'm going to have the answer in the future, it doesn't matter. The key in York County is I answered you. And so the main thing was I felt a lot of people in our industry, it was on their schedule, not our schedule. And when you're like that, then you're not creating business. You're saying, well, here I am. And we were like, hey, we're here to help you. Because in our world, So when, I remember the first time I went into my son's elementary school and we had to separate the spiritware order, and all this product was laying all over the gym, and it was like the t-shirt company just dropped it off and said, you separate it. And I was like, wow, if we separate that, or if we print it and then we bag it and tag it with their name on it and put it by classroom, that's going to be a bonus. So there's little things as it went on, and that's what we do now. But that's kind of the process of how it went along.
You started to see things you can make
Yeah,
better.
it's look at these things and go, well, what if we did that? And, usually, and I'm sure but, it starts out that in organizations, there was 100 people in the organization doing something. Well, now it's down to 10. And if you, as a company, can make their life easier by doing this or helping them, they're never going to leave you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Hey, I need this by Wednesday. Okay, great. I'll have it for you. So that's kind of how we played them. We played on, hey, look, we're going to work with you and we're going to make your life easier, because there's 5 of you that run what used to be 100 people running. Now there's 5 of you. And so we do a lot of things that one person can handle multiple things because they deal with us.
So when you were getting started, what were some of those early things that you did to kind of get it ramped up and going?
Well, I tend to think, and my wife usually says, that we know a lot of people. So when you're involved in youth sports already with your kids, I coached youth football for years, and I coached baseball, and now I'm a varsity lacrosse coach down at Susquehanna. And, you get involved in all those, then one thing leads to another. You're at league meetings, and we've always felt that if you build from the base, if you build from the youth program, that as they move along into high school or whatever, or even into owning businesses when they come back from college, so you build from the youth and you do these things right, and then as they move up, they'll start calling you, and that's exactly what happened. So you take care of these youth programs, you take care of these parents that work 8 to 5:30 and don't have anything to do with it, and you make their life easier. Then when their kids move on, their kids know you, and they're, you know what I mean, and they know what you do. Or the coaches move on to coach varsity or coach, a higher level or a travel team, or they go to another travel team. Then they start doing, and that's what happened. They all start calling us, and one athletic director leaves one school and goes to another school. One teacher leaves another school and becomes a principal in another school, and that's what happened. So our hunch of this is what we think will happen became reality.
What were some early challenges that you might have faced?
Wow. Relationship stuff. People would know that but I like this guy, and even though it was wrong and he was always late, or they waited 6 months, they knew it was wrong, but they didn't have the will to look at him and go, look, you're killing me. You know what I mean? This is just, it's not right. That was a big challenge. And for any business, it's money. How do we get it done? So for us, we contracted out with everything, and we had the shirts printed and embroidered and done elsewhere, and getting vendors to buy in. One of the things I did at the beginning was I said to the vendors, they'd walk in and go, wow, this, that, and the other thing, and you're in your basement or whatever. And I was like, look, I tell you what, give me your best pricing. Give it to me for 3 months. If I don't prove to you that I belong here, then you can yank it, and I'll go back down to your worst pricing. Mm-hmm. And not one of them ever pulled it. And matter of fact, I guess it was April 26th, the largest, buying group for our industry approached me, and we're in. And it's the same story I use with Under Armour. So we sell Under Armour. We're an Under Armour vendor, and they walked in my door. The senior VP of regional from Mississippi, all of the East Coast, walked in my door and said, I heard we need to be with you. So, you do things like that, and then you got to prove your point. Mm-hmm. Well, now they never question us. And now this largest buying group came in and asked us to be a part of it, and be a part of their group, which allows us to extend better pricing to our customers and better turn time. And it makes us proud. Somebody in New York, nobody in New York has ever been part of this buying group. They approached us. now we're a part of it.
So, 13 years in business, how has it changed from when you were, buying that laptop and working out of the basement to where you are now?
Well, technology is huge. So you go from, so for instance, you have regular printing and used to be manual, and they'd spin the thing and print a color and then print another color, and you had a dryer, and everybody did it in their garage, and it was ugly and dirty. And where our shop's kind of clean, you were there. So, our shop's clean. And now we have what my kids and a lot of people call, you got them octopuses back there. And, we can print 6,000 shirts in 2 hours, So technology, a lot of things are going to direct to garment, where you can take the ink that we actually use, and somebody wants, rest in peace grandma with her picture on and whatever, and we can turn those shirts around in a short period of time. We haven't got any direct to garment machines right now, but that's where the industry's going, and that's where we're going to be. So you can do the smaller orders, and they can still get it here instead of going on like Custom Ink, who charges them $28 for a T-shirt. Sure. Ours might be $15, but it's so we can turn it around. They could come pick it up. They could pay it. Mm-hmm. We can shake their hand, look them in the eye, and say thank you. So it's technology. Technology is huge with anything. I mean, we have a shop management program at our shop. So, anytime some customer comes in and puts an order in, and then they walk back to us 7 years later, we can pull that order up. We can pull the order up. We can pull everything up. So for us, it's technology. Hey, you got to stay on it. I've always been a big believer in our business that I think if you make your employees effective and efficient, that by buying the appropriate things, a lot of people will buy, they won't spend the money on the good machinery because they got to worry about being a part of a country club, or they got to buy this, or they got to buy that. I get paid last. The fruits of my labor will come at the end. I take care of my employees. I make them better. If they're making $25 an hour, I want to make them a $45 an hour employee without them even knowing it, just by buying the equipment. And that's what we have done. So, like I said, it's technology. And if you invest in it, it'll be right. Pay your bills, invest in it. I've been one of the best things I ever did when I started this business was I got a mentorship board, and I went to some guys that are very successful in the community. You probably heard of them. Mike Wecker owns Wecker's Carpet. Bob Davies, General Machine. Delmar Houck was Houck Logistics. Nick Houck owns Keystone Trailer Services. They were like a mentorship board, and still, so you take them out for a couple of drinks and you throw some things at us, and they're like, oh man, I remember those days. And they start, and then they give you back information, and then they'll call you back. Hey, how'd you make out? What's going on? So there are some things that you can do business wise that'll help you out. But the main thing is our employees. They bought in, they believe in it. They love walking around, seeing what they put out there. And if you make them more efficient at what they do, and they put it out there, and they love their job, I'm a big believer in quality of life. So with our employees at our shop, it's a quality of life thing. You know what I mean? Like, we work 8:30 to 4:30. We don't have to work weekends. Mm-hmm. If we work weekends, hey, listen, it's because we're having a business, and we'll get that taken away and get other people in here and get more machines or whatever we need to do. But it's a quality of life thing, and they love their job. They love seeing the product out there. They love coming to work. They're proud of what they do, and that's what it's about. It's
interesting you kind of mentioned those little who's of York in business. Get a beer with them and they give you some advice. Being that you were, primarily grew up in York and Red Lion, and you had these connections, how did you find that York, supported you in starting your business and getting out there?
Well, I think you have to ask. I think you need to sit down with them and ask them, hey, look, I'm starting this, what's your thoughts, or, and you might not get the answers that you like right away. Mm-hmm. And, Mike Wecker started in his garage, pretty prevalent business right now, and then now his son and nephew are taking over. But you have to be able to ask. A lot of these entrepreneurs don't know if you want the information, or these people that have become successful. But if you go ask them, man, they'll talk your ear off. And, you know, I just saw something, Jeff Inch, the Inch brothers have Inch and Company Landscaping and all that, and they do a lot of things. And he met with Bob Kinsley, and then he said, this is my inspiration and this, that, and the other thing. Those guys want to give it up. I mean, they've done theirs. They've done their piece, you know, and they want to give guidance, especially if you're involved in the community, and give back to the community. And you know, your kids go down to, you and your wife and your kids go down to First Friday and do all of that. Yeah. They want to be a part of that. Yeah. They're from here. They live here. You know, just like all of us. But you have to be able to ask. And, you know, for some people, it's tough to go say, hey, can you help me? Or, hey, I have a question. Or, hey, you want to go out to lunch? You know, oh, well, you're Bob Kinsley or you're Mike Wecker. Do you want to talk to me? And for me, that wasn't. Well, now, some of them I've known. I've coached their kids and we're friends. But, you know, you got to be prepared for the smack in the face too, and they're looking at you going, what are you doing? You know, so that's the biggest challenge.
What was advice that you went for?
Do's and don'ts. They're very good at telling you do this and don't do that.
Sure.
You know, obviously the government's involved in anything. So you pay your payroll taxes, you pay your sales tax, you pay yourself last, you take care of your employees, you know, find your employees through your employees, all kinds of stuff. I mean, that like, they'll a lot. And then you'll bring up an idea and you'll throw it at them and they'll give you that like raised eyebrow. Okay, let's think about this.
Yeah.
And then they won't answer you for 15 minutes. They'll talk about something else. And then they'll come back and go, let's talk about your idea. And get ready, because they're going to smack you in the forehead. And I've always been a two by four to the forehead kind of guy. I tell my wife that all the time. Sometimes you need to smack me in the head with a 2x4. And my mentorship board is that way. They'll look at you, walk away from a little bit, and then they'll come back and smack you. And you'll be like, yeah, you know, you're right. What was I thinking? You know, but they love that. You know, they made theirs. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're successful. It is more an investment to them to have people look out there and with businesses and for them to look at you and say, they don't have to brag about it. I helped that kid. He knows it, and I know it.
You've been in business several years now. Do you still call on these guys?
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day. You know, it's funny, we're here recording and Big Jim Seafood's right behind us, and Jimmy Kernick's part of that group. Like, you know, and, you know, you get a lot of do's and don'ts, but yeah, they're all involved. I mean, if I made a phone call right here as we were sitting, Mike would get on the phone and would be like, hey man, let's meet for a drink and let's talk. I got a couple things to run by you. All right, I'll be there. When do you want to meet? Yeah. You know, but yeah, none of them have ever turned me down, ever.
Are you at the point where you kind of return the favor to others now that you see coming up the line?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how that works. That's a fabulous question. Never thought about it, but yeah, I get a lot of that. They want to ask you the question, and you know, a lot of the new people, when you kind of give them that direction, like I got direction, and they look at you like, yeah, you're just a crazy old man, or yeah, you know, what do you know? You know, and yeah, you get that a lot. You know, I do that a lot. I help people a lot. But you get the crazy question. I mean, you get the crazy questions, and I've always found it to be truthful. You know, they're gonna love you more than if you're truthful than if you lie to them and they fail. Yeah. So,
through your journey in entrepreneurship, you had those other things that you kind of had before, you know, getting into the t-shirt business. Are you still involved in other things, or are you primarily?
No, my life is my world there to the T Outfitters. I mean, you know, when you talk about like sports, or are you talking about?
You mentioned kind of like the other businesses that you were involved in.
No, man, when my ex-wife decided to leave me, I kind of got out of them.
Okay.
And it was best for my partners. I mean, I didn't want them to be involved in that, so I got out and went in right into mortgages. But as far as sports, I'm still involved in sports. Okay. I mean, that's what I grew up on, you know. So my kids play sports in college, and you know, it's just our world at our house. Yeah, sports. Yeah.
I own a fairly young business, so talking to somebody that owns a 13-year-old business, it feels like, you've kind of made it to an extra level. But for you, what do you feel like you're still learning?
Well, a good friend of mine said to me a while back, Nick Halk owns Keystone Trailer Services, and I had looked at him and he said, even Mike Wecker said the same thing, get to the 15-year point, get to the 15-year point. And I was like, well, does that mean I made it? Or, what is that? And they were just like, get to the 15-year point. That doesn't mean you made it. That just means that you survived and you beat the Lion Slayer. Like, you've kind of made it there. And so that's the only way I can really answer it, is like, 13 years went quick. How about that?
Okay.
And, I have a friend that's said to me just the other day, wow, man, I've been in 5 years. I got so far to go. And I was like, yeah, I thought that too when I was at the 5-year point. Mm-hmm. And now I'm at the 13-year point. And here I am. Do I consider myself have I made it yet? I'm very driven. And I take I'm also, friends with a lot of people in the community who, one of the biggest, most driven persons I've been around is a guy named Eric Brewer, who owns CR Property Group, and he owns a bunch of stuff. But driven, to me, year 13 seems like year 1. I always treat it like year 1. So I'm constantly driven. What's the new? What's the next? And I don't get out of the realm of what's in my what I call what's in my rear view mirror. We do the things that's within the realm of what we do. Mm-hmm. You'll get a lot of people that'll do multiple different things that's outside of what they do. That's where I learn from guys like Eric. You keep it here,
What do you think year 15 looks like for you?
Whew. The bigger and better, getting in this buying group and a bigger and better business than what we have now, in the sense of selling more equipment like Shutt and Riddell Shutt and Shutt helmets and football and Wilson, and doing more of, one of the things, and I tell this to people years ago, and I guess you can consider them a competitor right now, but when I was a kid, John Grove's Sporting Goods was a huge sporting goods store in York County, and Old Man Grove used to drive around in a van to all the schools, and always said, man, that's the coolest thing in the world. Like, he drives around, sells product, and everybody wants. And one of my goals with my business was to do that. We're getting there, but that all the schools, and that, where you buy it from? To the T Outfitters. Mm-hmm. They used to. I could go into Groves and get it, and that's kudos to what he did. Back in the day. So that's where I am now. That's where I see us going. Mm-hmm. Will I ever be as good as John Grove's Sporting Goods? Maybe not. But in today's world, close.
Different type of business.
Yeah, man. Now a lot of people just drive around with a van and, hey man, what's up? And they make a phone call. We got the phone call part down. Now let's get to make sure that we have everything that they need and support the schools and the sports and anything at the schools. So,
what sort of impact do you hope that you're able to leave in York?
Well, oh wow, business wise, I still stand back and we're successful. I would consider us successful, but I still cower at some of those pillars, the Bob Pulos and Tony Campese. My wife is real dear friends with Ryan Campese, and his wife Heidi. Heidi is one of my wife's dear friends, and their family, and Tony Campese, Gladfelder Insurance, is just one of those dudes. You know what I mean? Like the Bob Pulos. And, I've always been fond of Harry Zimmerman, who was with pull on them. And Harry Zimmerman was in the banking business for years, and even a guy I went to high school with, like a Mike Huson. So that, there's a lot of people out there. I hope that, well, I would hope, I don't know. I don't know about hope. I don't go to bed every night, put my head on the pillow, worried about if people are going to think of me like those guys. I think you just do what you do, So that's where I stand. Like, I just go out and work every day. And if it comes, it comes. And it's how you accept it, wrap your hands around it.
Yeah.
I mean, the bigger part of our business is now we're at a point where year 15, where you look at, like, how do we give back? And, you were there when I gave to Aubrey's Angels. The Four Diamonds stuff is huge to us. We gave, I don't know, 5,000 shirts away last year to the Four Diamonds clubs in York County, for the schools, for their mini-thons. So we did a whiteout. We gave away shirts. They sold the money. They kept the money. We have a Four Diamonds family in our facility. Fortunately, he's great now, but he had leukemia, and my screen printer son had leukemia, and then they got through all that, and then so those things are huge to us. You were at my event when Mike Allison Jr. was up there, and donated to their cause, but it all stays here. It's all for those kids. That's big to us now. Like, how do we become involved? And, we give back to these organizations I'm a big believer in I pat your back, you pat mine. So if you buy your stuff from me and something's important to you, you're having a fundraiser or a chicken barbecue, we'll buy stuff and we'll do stuff. And because that comes back. I mean, a lot of people don't think that. They're like, oh, well, everybody calls us and yeah, I get that. But if you do it on the down low, everybody knows. And then they're like, oh man, they participate. And that's huge to us.
That's community.
It's community, and we wouldn't be doing what we do without the community.
Yeah. You've been fortunate, I think. The connections that you've had in York, and this is home for you. But I think York is in an interesting place right now, where we have a lot of people coming to the table. Some of them are from here, some of them aren't. Some of them are transplants. So I think sometimes for those transplants, there's circles that are kind of formed in York that are really valuable. How would you suggest somebody kind of break into some of those circles that you've had the benefit of knowing?
So we are Pennsylvania Dutch here, and that I don't even consider myself in an inner circle. I know a lot of them, but we are Pennsylvania Dutch. So and when I say that, I mean that. Now I am one. I grew up, Schnitzenepp and the whole nine, sauerkraut, but I think that sometimes it takes just walking up and talking to them, meaning like just being there. Yeah. Pennsylvania Dutch background is they're not going to walk up and talk to you. You got to walk up and talk to them, and you got to prove to them, this is what I'm doing. And then once they see that, then they'll, it's a tough gig. We can't compare ourselves to Lancaster. We can't compare ourselves to anything else. We just got to do what we have here. It's unfortunate there's so many in our community that poo-poo it. Oh yeah, this and oh yeah, that and all this, and they put down everything instead of lifting up one thing. I think if you lift up one thing, then more things will come. And there's so many that give that don't ask for the limelight. Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that give a lot that nobody asks for the limelight. But we're a world of look what I've done. So, I talk about it here because we're interviewing, but my buddy there at the event, at our buy local event at my shop, he had no clue. And I just did that to bring more presence to those business owners that were there, or those people there, and how much it meant to a friend of mine, so.
What kind of impact do you think small businesses in particular can have in York that maybe they don't realize that they can have?
Wow, that's an open-ended question, and what I mean by that is I think that there are people that feel they are for the small business, but I don't, and they act like they promote the small business, but I don't know if they truly understand what a small business could do. And let me give you a little insight. Recently at a big event in York, awards, some of my friends, people that have done work for me, got awards. And, they were promoting the fact that they got grants for Johnson Controls, $10 million. Johnson Controls is $1 billion company. We got grants for these other businesses. And I'm thinking, well, you're a local, you're promoting York, but you're giving them to people that already have, What if I got $1 million? Just give me $1 million. I could buy a bigger building. I could have more machines. I could have more employees. Sure. I think we lose face with that. It's more about, look what we've done, instead of why do you have to help one? Why can't you help 10? We lose that a lot around here. And because they want to say, look what I've done and look what we've done. And hey, why don't you join our group? Well, you helped one, not 10. You know what I mean? I've had multiple groups approach me about joining anything. I'm like, why? What are you going to do for me? And I think that once that changes, you know what I mean? I think our world's just going to explode. Why does it have to be about your development or what you want to do or what you need to get reelected or who your friends are? How about you do it for everybody? Take 10 million and give it to 10 different or 20 different businesses at $500,000. I could do a lot with $500,000.
It's York County. We're scrappy.
Well, define scrappy. We're define scrappy. Yeah. The problem with me being from York County is that I'll say that to somebody. My wife has to keep me away from some people because I'll say that, and I don't become friends. But I've always been told from my Pennsylvania Dutch grandparents and my dad and all that, if the truth hurts, it should. And I think if we aren't true to ourselves, to say, oh, well, we just gave $10 million or got a grant for $10 million for $1 billion business. Right? But yet here we are. I went from 0 employees to 13 employees in 13 years. I want to hire 5, 6, 7 more.
Sure.
Where's your loyalty? Oh, I'm from York and I'm York and I wear that pin proud and I can go here and let me cut your ribbon, but you want to give it to $1 billion company. That's where I have the challenges in my business, because I'm out there grinding and going to little events and doing things and, working with XL York and, working with just doing little things. I don't ask for, but, when we do need help and want to hire more people, help us, Yeah. And I think you would see it would just get big. And, sometimes I speak my mind too much.
Makes it more interesting, right?
I guess. I love the things that they do downtown. I think it's unbelievably awesome. There's some big proponents of downtown. But why can't it be for the whole county? We have a lot of things in this county. But I think it has to start somewhere. That's why why I'm a big believer in what they do. You got to start somewhere.
Ripple effects.
It's a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
And it will come.
Yeah.
So, but that's my gig. That's my take on all this. I think we need to be into what we do here, and not be Pennsylvania Dutch, wrap our hands around it and like, no, it's just us.
Right. Yeah. Be open.
It's kind of funny. You go over to the Amish community and a barn burns down and 17,000 people show up and they rebuild that barn in a day. Why can't we do that in your community?
Sure. Yeah.
So I went on a tangent there. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, Chris, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us a little bit today about your background and your story. And exciting to hear that you've been doing well. I look forward to maybe hearing what happens in year 15.
If I get there.
Think on it. Yeah. All right.